I'm Chris McAlilly.
And I'm Katie Heckle.
And we are the Co-op, and we've been leading you through a summer Bible reading plan that we've been using with college students here in an internship program throughout the summer with folks in Mississippi. We want to share this content with you, and we would love for you to follow along with the summer Bible reading plan. And we're on week 5 this week, and we're talking about work and rest. Katie's written this amazing Bible reading plan, and this week we're talking about the rhythm of life that is working and resting. It's not burning out and exhausting yourself. It's not rotting on the couch and binge watching Netflix. But there's a design that God has woven into who we are as creatures. And I'd love to hear from you, Katie, kind of how you think about it. But first, in the Bible reading plan, you begin with a beautiful passage where Jesus is talking to the disciples, and it's Matthew 11, and you have the Message translation. Would you read that for us?
Sure. It says this: "Are you tired, worn out, burnt out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly." That's Matthew 11, 28 through 30, but in the Message.
I love the invitation that Jesus offers to us to both kind of check in with ourselves. And so I would hope that as you're engaging with this video and as you're engaging with the Bible reading plan this week, that you do a check-in and ask those questions of yourself. Are you tired? Are you worn out? Are you burned out on religion? And then receive the invitation. For you, Katie, as you read this passage, what do you connect with immediately? What kind of comes to the fore that Jesus is inviting us into?
Yeah, I think it's first just the invitation. It's kind of checking in with self to ask the question, like, how am I doing physically, spiritually, emotionally? But like when it comes to what's the rhythm of my going? So Jesus gives this invitation of like, hey, check in with yourself. Are you tired? Like, are you worn out? Or you burned out on religion? Just come to me. So it's the invitation, but it's an invitation that also brings a response to walk towards Jesus and to recognize that he is the ultimate form of rest. But Chris, like in your life, what does that look like when you think about Jesus gives this invitation to come to me, all who are, another translation, weary or heavy burden, you'll find rest for your souls. What does that actually look like?
Yeah, so I am a religious professional, and in a lot of ways, as a pastor, I am charged with creating, producing the church for other people. And so my rhythm is going to be different than maybe yours if you're working in a healthcare context, or if you're a lawyer, or you're in education, or you're an entrepreneur. And so the rhythm for me is a little different. When I get to Sunday, that's a work day.
That's right.
So I think one of the things that this passage has helped me to think about is, what is my pace of life? What is my week and my month and my year? What are the seasons?
Right.
And so one of the things that's impacted for me is thinking about the unique vocation or calling that my life has taken on. And there are other dimensions, that being the vocations that you take on change the pace or the rhythm that you're in. Being a husband comes with its own pace and rhythm. Being a father, and now a father of 3, that comes with its own pace and rhythm that impacts how I can engage in rest. What about for you? How do you think about that rhythm for yourself?
Yeah. I kind of measure it with, like what you were saying, there's different identities and categories in which my life and the pace of my life is moving. So, I measure it by way of work, by way of time with people, by way of also like my spiritual life, my quiet time that's daily, but also what weekly rhythms and then what monthly rhythms. And I like what you said about just seasons, because life is often, we go through different seasons just like creation does, right? And so for me, it is constantly changing because life is moving so much. So what works one week might not work the next week. I wish I could say that I'm a very scheduled rest keeper, and that I take the Sabbath really seriously. And I do think we should take the Sabbath seriously, but I don't know that for me it's not ever been very productive, because then I'll measure it by the productivity of Sabbath.
Right.
And that's not what it's meant to be.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think, even as you're talking, one of the things I'm thinking about is we have our family rhythms and what you grew up with and what was the rhythm of life within your personal family of origin. And you also have, these rhythms that we participate in because we're in a culture.
Right.
And I think the economy that you live within is a huge factor. There used to be a time where, the Bible is written at a time where the world economy was agrarian. It followed the rhythms of the seasons and even the festival life, where the Jewish people, the Hebrew people, would rest as a culture communally. That would be driven by when the harvest was.
Okay.
There would be a festival of first fruits. There'd be a festival of the harvest, where you would bring the first fruits of the harvest to the temple, to Jerusalem, and you'd come together and you would have a festival, you'd have a celebration, you'd have a meal, and you would rest as a culture. We don't have that benefit. Like, we've moved now to a global, a global economy that's not tied as closely to the rhythms of the seasons and the weather and the crops. And then people are trying to make more and more and more money.
Right.
And that requires all of us to accelerate the pace of life.
Right.
And there's no differentiation in the global economy between a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. All of those are times where if you're in labor, you're producing things.
Right.
And if you're consuming things.
Right.
And so there's no rest in our global economy. It is 24/7, 365, and that presses upon all of us in ways that I don't think we even realize. It presses on our local community lives, our religious lives, our social lives. And so it puts a lot of pressure on us as individuals to try to find our rhythm.
Yeah.
And I confess that oftentimes I suck at it. And just being honest, like I've struggled with it because I think there's been a collapse of these communal forms of rest. And, growing up, did you have that rhythm? Did your family or your culture or your church, did everyone stop on a particular day? Were you able to kind of resist the cultural forces?
No, we didn't. And I think the more I read, people that have really studied the Sabbath, John Mark Comer comes to mind as somebody that I feel like, he has written and researched and labored over helping people understand God's intentions for Sabbath, the fact that he calls us to it and that he models it himself. And so I relate to you that our story growing up, typically you thought Sabbath was, Sunday, and that it was to go to church, and then we were to spend time with family, but we didn't really practice what it meant. And so I think there is this disconnection between this foreign concept of what Sabbath used to be, kind of this description that you gave from the scriptures, and then this modern day, how do I actually practice the kind of rest that Jesus invites us to that's connected to him? And I think that there is a disconnect. So for me, Sabbath has looked differently through different seasons, but it almost always centers around spending time with Jesus, actually stopping the work. So like not checking my email, not checking my phone, disconnecting from the things that kind of pull me, towards a work mode. And then intentionally being with people that I care about being with, that are life-giving, that fill me up, versus life-taking. Not everybody is life-giving relationships. Sometimes it's life-taking. That doesn't mean that they're not important to spend time with. But for me, it's recognizing what's life-giving and what's life-taking, and kind of finding the balance of that. What brings me and fills me closer and is restorative to my soul, that's going to be like a walk, or good food with good people, a good book maybe read outside. Just it can look so different. And so in our reading plan in the very back, you'll just see some template form of how potentially, if you want to start practicing Sabbath and practicing rest in a more intentional way, taking Jesus up on his invitation. Are you tired? Are you burned out? Are your burdens heavy? Come to me. Well, come to me can look different for each person.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that. And if you work your way through the Bible reading plan, if you don't have it, you can go and find a link to the PDF. And this is on page 39. And what you'll see is a simple way to start practicing the Sabbath. I love what Katie offers us. Pick a time. For me, it looks like Monday because Sunday is like the height of my work week. And so Monday is a time for me to take intentional time for rest. And then decide what you'll do, what feels like true rest. For me, it typically is exercise, and it's best when I get out into the woods because the woods is a space where I feel very connected to God as the creator, myself as a creature. If I'm like being in a forest and seeing the regenerative, restorative nature of a forest for me is really helpful and kind of connecting me to some of the broader themes of Scripture, to God's creative and restorative action in the world. Decide what you won't do, what drains you, what feels like work. I'm terrible at this. I will answer email. I have a hard time with boundaries as it relates to this. It's something I'm working on.
Sure.
And then also just being present, and that looks like trying to be present intentionally at the beginning of the day for prayer. So just beginning my day in praise and thanksgiving, and then taking intentional time to be with my wife, to be with my kids, and to reconnect with deep, long, abiding friendships. Those are the things that are most important. What about for you?
Yeah. For me, it's about, sometimes it's Saturday, sometimes it's Sunday, and then sometimes it's just moments in the ordinary day that I might practice rest. Because I think there's a pace in which we run and move that every day can be like your glass is just getting very, very empty.
Right.
And so sometimes it's very intentional, like I'm going to spend and I'm going to like plan a Sabbath day, and other times it's not planned. I'm not thinking about it. But I'll decide what I'm going to do and what I'm not going to do. Yeah. And so I'm not going to, wash dishes or like potentially cook because that feels like a chore to me. I am going to spend, like you said, in time in nature and with people. And then I might spend time doing something creative. I might write. I might do songwriting. I might do a craft. Just that kind of stuff really can be life-giving to me, to kind of connect with the Lord as creator, and to remember that he intentionally rested and caused me to rest. He blesses the specific time. We don't have to go on a journey to a specific place. God blessed a day and time. And so he uses that time to restore our soul with him. And so it's just that, how am I linking with the Lord? How am I connecting? And how am I just being restored so that I can continue to go on each day by day? And it's the challenge, though, to like actually follow through with it.
It is a challenge. And so I guess a couple encouragements that I would offer you if this is something you want to engage. One is to refamiliarize yourself with the structure that is embedded in the Bible related to work and rest and Sabbath. So the Bible reading plan, if you'll follow it this week, what you'll see is we'll go back to creation, and you'll see that Sabbath is baked into or woven into the fabric of the created order in the beginning. And then when we get it out of whack, what you'll see is that Sabbath is the counter practice to Pharaoh's economy in Egypt. God brings his people out of slavery where they had to work, 24/7, 365, and God reestablished this created pattern of work and rest where one day was to be holy.
That's right.
And then you see how it evolves through the Old Testament and the New Testament. So that's the first thing. Refamiliarize yourself with the structure of God's created order that's embedded in the Scripture. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing I would encourage you to do is just take a calendar that has nothing on it. Not your calendar, but just a week from Sunday through Saturday, and kind of from the beginning to the end of every day, and begin to think about where are the chunks of time within your life where you could maybe begin an intentional Sabbath practice, and look for the half days or the full days where you could do some of that. And then think about like what you would do within that. I think that's a key dimension to it. And then the last thing I would say would be that if you can get better at this, it actually will help with every other aspect of the spiritual life, particularly listening. Next week, we're going to be talking about discernment and trusting in God. If you get good at Sabbath, you'll be better at listening. Listening to yourself, your own heart, your mind, your friends, your neighbors, and to what God might be calling you to do. Those are the things I would say. Any encouragement that you would offer just as we kind of wrap up our time this week?
Just to remind you that it is a practice. It is a skill. It is something that must be done with intention. It's not just going to happen. And so planning it doesn't, minimize it or even maximize it. It's just recognizing I'm putting aside time to spend with the Lord, doing restorative things. And so, to the person that thinks it's just going to church and praying all day, I just challenge that idea. It's like taking you back to the garden at the very beginning with Adam and Eve and how the Lord was with them, walking with them in the cool of the day, doing normal, everyday things, that the Lord is with us. And so what restores your soul? What are some of those things? And plan to do it on a day. At least start with an hour and just do it for an hour and then build on that.
And what I would say is to the type A people that cannot stop, it's actually more lazy to work than it is to find a rhythm of rest. If you can allow yourself to engage the practice, you will find freedom. Freedom that your heart and your soul and your body need if you're going to sustain the work that God is calling you to do and the vocations that God is calling you to do. You'll find freedom as you declare that your identity is not rooted in what you can produce. Your identity is rooted in who you are. You are claimed as a beloved child of God, and you're called to good work. But in order to sustain that, you need rest. So allow yourself to rest.
What Chris said.
And I'm only saying what Katie has put on the page. So engage the Bible reading plan. We look forward to seeing you next week.